Let's read some creepy Home Alone stories. At the time, I was living in the basement of my boyfriend's parents' house. He had lived in that basement for years and always told me about shadows moving quickly across corners and walls and other unsettling things happening. I always thought he was exaggerating. It was in the middle of a weekday, and I was the only one home. I was cleaning and doing laundry. I had a radio plugged in playing a local station, and their dog was in the basement with me. I was bending over to pick up another piece of laundry to fold when I saw a shadow out of the corner of my eye shoot across a dark corner of the hallway. I figured it was just my mind playing with me. I went back to folding. Suddenly, the lights flickered on and off, and the radio flickered in and out, then turned to static for a few seconds before going silent. At the exact same time, the dog's hair stood on end, and she ran, tail tucked, up the stairs. I called her to come back, but she stood at the top of the stairs, barking frantically, refusing to come down. I believed my boyfriend after that. Yeah, if you tell me your basement is haunted, don't worry about me. I am not going down there. When my wife left for work at 9 p.m., I called my friends and told them to get their asses on the game. We played until 2 a.m., but we would have played more if it weren't for the events that happened this night. My headphones were at maximum volume, so I could barely hear anything. I had my dog beside me and felt really safe. What was most unsettling, though, was that my PC was positioned away from any windows and doors, so I couldn't see anything behind me. Thankfully, I had the bright idea of giving my dog treats just for the company. He would always go away if I had no treats or when he felt like it, so I kept a bag close. At around 2:10, I was thinking of getting off but continued to play. Suddenly, out of nowhere, my dog springs up from his bed and starts going full-on berserk mode. I took my headphones off and looked behind me, and I saw 2 eyes staring at me through the window. What was most scary was I could only see the eyes and nothing else. I jumped up in fear and grabbed a kitchen knife and called my wife. After she came back home, we searched for any signs of the intruder still being here. We called the police too. They didn't find anything. We've moved since that day. This happened over a decade ago when I was 12 years old. I live in a small town in Oklahoma, and in my neighborhood the houses are fairly spread apart, separated by woods. It was a school day, so my grandma picked me up from school and brought me home. This was the first year that I got dropped off at my house alone. Before this, I would just go to my grandma's house after school. I would get dropped off at around 3 p.m., and my parents would be home around 4:30. Not that big of a deal. Today, for some reason, my dad wasn't going to be home until later, around 7, and my mom, a teacher, wouldn't be home until around 8 p.m. because she had parent-teacher conferences at the school. This happened in early fall, so it wouldn't even be dark until like 8:30 p.m. I did what I usually did when I got home. I ran upstairs, got on my Xbox 360, and played Minecraft with my friends. Today it was just me and my friend Seth. I was playing for about 2 hours when I heard a car door shut in my driveway. No one should have been here until like 7 p.m. My house is set up to where my upstairs has windows that look over my driveway. So, with my mic on and controller in hand, I went to the window to see who it was. Maybe my dad got home earlier than expected. I looked outside. It was a red truck. No one I know drives a red truck. The person pulled into the middle of my driveway sideways, like he owned the place. When I looked out the window, I saw a man with a hat, wearing a big camo hoodie and jeans. It was September, so no one should have been wearing a big hoodie and jeans in Oklahoma. By the time I looked, he was already almost out of view, going up my walkway to my front door. I thought maybe it was one of my dad's friends or someone my dad hired to do something, but he would usually tell me if someone was going to be coming over. Soon after, I heard a knock at the door, then another. I go to my other window that has a better view of the walkway up to my front door. I see the guy walking back down the walkway. I switch and go back to looking through the windows overlooking my driveway. I'm relaying all of this to Seth, still with my mic on. I tell Seth that he's walking back to his truck now. Instead, he walks past his truck and tries to open my garage side door. At this point, my heart sinks. I tell Seth that this guy just tried to get into my house. Mind you, it is literally broad day at like 5 p.m. Luckily, it was locked because sometimes we forget to lock it. After he tried the door, he starts walking to my back patio. I drop my headset and I quietly run downstairs to see what he is doing. I get downstairs and stand behind the wall, so I'm not visible from the back door / living room windows. I just listen. I hear him try to open the door, then I hear a thud. It sounded like he dropped a brick on the ground or something. At this point, I'm more scared than I've ever been. I wanted to call my parents or grandma, but I didn't have a cell phone yet. The only phone in my house was in my kitchen. I would have to cross my living room to get there, and he would be able to see me if I went in there. A few seconds after the thud, I peeked around the corner and he was gone. I ran back upstairs and put my headset back on, telling Seth that he just tried to open the back door as well. As I'm telling him this, I hear a car door shut. This time when I look out the window, he finally got in his truck. I looked at the truck closer, and I noticed the only thing he has in his truck bed was a crowbar and a shovel. He sat in his truck for what felt like a few minutes. During this time, Seth told me to get my iPod and take a picture of his license plate. He was parked to where I couldn't see. Then he drove backwards out of my driveway and down the road. A few minutes after he was confirmed gone, I went downstairs to see what the thud could have been. I get to the back door and see that the doormat was moved. Both big plant pots had been moved as well. He was looking for a key. Holy fuck. We have a hidden key back there too. The key to the back door was under one of the smaller plant pots on a ledge near the door, not the bigger ones that he had checked under. I went to the front porch and all the pots looked like they had been moved too. I don't know what I would have done if he was able to find the key or if he just broke in. After he left, I called my dad and told him what happened. When my dad got home, he had a cop come over and I told him what happened and gave him a description. The guy never came back. See, this is why I will never have a spare key to my house outside of my house. That's insane.
This girl starts off by letting us know that when she was younger, her and her little brother would have to travel state to state because of her parents' job. Eventually, because of them moving so much, the parents actually decided to get a divorce. She said it was more so because they ended up having to go to like different states at a time and they kind of grew apart. During the divorce, they both agreed that they would take the children a year at a time. So the mom would take them for a year, then the dad would take them the following year, and so on and so forth. She says how much it sucks to have been with only one parent for a year, but she understands. She doesn't hold any resentment towards them. She knew that they were doing this and that they were trying to give her and her brother a better life. You know, she never held this against them. What she didn't like though was that both of her parents were very hard workers, and sometimes even though she had to stay with one parent, that parent still had to go to work, so she would end up having to stay alone at home. Well, not exactly alone, but she had to stay with her little brother that was 4 years younger than her. She kind of mentions how annoying it was because at the time it was just someone that she had to take care of. In a way, yeah, she was alone and she had to protect her little brother. She knows how annoying that sounds because at the end of the day, that's her little brother, but at the time, she was a little girl herself, so yeah, it was annoying having to take care of another little kid. Story she's about to tell us that happened says that it was the year that she had to stay with her dad in Jalisco, more specifically Zapopan. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. At the time, she was 11 years old and her little brother was 6. By this time, they had already been back and forth with mom and dad, and this was going to be their last day before they made the permanent move to the United States. The house that they moved into with their dad was huge, and she said it looked fairly new, like it didn't even look like anybody had lived there before them, which is why she never got a negative vibe or like anything that could tell her like something bad was in there. She said because this wasn't going to be a permanent stay, they didn't really decorate, they didn't really add furniture to the house, just what they really needed, which was like their fridge, the stove, their beds. Because they didn't add furniture or like so many things in that house, and because it was so big, any little noise would be like echoed throughout the house. She says that she is not exaggerating when she says that the echo would sound through the house because she could sometimes hear if like her dad dropped something. She could hear when her brother would flush the toilet all the way across the house, or when someone would turn on like the water to take a shower. You can hear everything. So one day at around midnight, she was on the phone with one of her friends when she started to hear her brother turn her doorknob like really hard. She got annoyed and basically told him to go back to sleep and stop bothering her. She said he stopped and she thought he went to bed, but then 20 minutes later, while she was still on the phone with her friend, it happened again. Her brother was like literally trying to open her doorknob, and this time she was pissed, so she walked towards the door and just screamed for him to go to bed. She continued to be on the phone with her friend. She said that she was really into the chisme that she was telling her, when all of a sudden it happened again. But this time it kind of like startled her because that door was being pulled violently by her brother. It got so bad that she just ended up hanging up the phone, started walking towards the door. Before she even got to the door, she started screaming at her little brother like, what are you doing and why are you awake at— by this point it was 2 in the morning. So she's like, why are you awake at 2 in the morning? What's wrong with you? She's still screaming, so she opens the door and she's like, what are you doing awake? There was no one in front of her door. She said in that moment, she was not scared. She was more so confused. So she closed her door and like it kind of hit her in that moment. Like she has her back against her door and she's like, oh my God. She realized that she never heard her little brother hop off his bed, open his door, or much less walk through that hallway, which is something that she was used to hearing because again, that house would echo every single tiny itty bitty noise. That's the moment that I would simply pass away. She said that while she was in that oh fuck moment is when she heard her little brother hop off his bed, open his door, and walk in that hallway. And that's when she opened her bedroom door to meet him, and he was standing there and she's like, what are you doing? Why were you shaking my door in that way? Because again, like, yeah, she never heard him, but also she's like, maybe he did do it. It was at that moment when her little brother told her that it wasn't him, but that he got out of his bed because he was really cold and scared because he felt as if someone was watching him. He also said that he thought he had heard someone open his bedroom door and come in there. In that moment, this 11-year-old girl had to be like the bravest girl she could, told him to stay in her room, get in the bed, and she still had the bravery to run to his bedroom because she wanted to get him his own pillow and blanket. She said that when she went to his bedroom to get the stuff, she was so scared that all she could look was straight at the bed, get the stuff. She could not look around his room because she also felt like if something was watching her when she walked in there. Another thing, she also noticed how cold her brother's room was. It was freezing in that room. She said that there was no way that room could have been that cold because it was in the time of season where it was hot in Sopopan. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Okay. So there was no way that that room could have been that cold. She said it felt like a freezer in there. So she quickly grabbed his stuff, started walking towards her room, and noticed that her little brother was not in there. She almost started freaking out, but she turned around and saw him standing at the edge of the stairs, and he was literally staring like down the stairs, almost like if something was there. She was a little too scared to get close to him, so instead she's like, hey, are you okay? I told you to go into my room. What are you looking at? Her brother didn't even answer her. All he did was point down the stairs. I try to put myself in these situations and think, would I have gotten close and maybe just pulled him into my room? Or would I just be like, cool, close my fucking door? After he pointed down the steps, he then eventually says, there's a little girl at the bottom of the stairs. In that moment, she felt a type of horror that she had never felt before. Her body like got stiff. She was scared, but she also came to the conclusion that that little girl possibly was the one shaking her door and it wasn't her brother. She said that after that, the quickest way possible, she grabbed her brother by the shoulders and just pulled him back into her room and locked that door. When she did get close to kind of pull him, her curiosity got the better of her because she did take a glance down there. Thankfully, she didn't see a little girl down there. She saw nothing. She said that somehow they ended up falling asleep, and the next day they realized that they were in fact not alone because they didn't know that their dad was home too. She thought she was home alone with her little brother. Her dad was actually in his bedroom asleep with the door closed. She actually says that she doesn't think it would have mattered because her dad had such a deep sleep that they would have never woken him up at that time. The next day, they ended up telling the dad what happened, and all he did was laugh because kids have the greatest imagination. She says that her and her brother, now that they're older, talk about this that happened, and a lot of other things happened, but nothing this crazy. Except she says that her brother remembers this differently. He never remembers seeing a girl down there. He almost said that he felt like he was in a state of trance, and he only woke up when she pulled him into her bedroom. Anyway, this is a story that I translated from Spanish to English from Relatos de Noche. I'm gonna add the video here with the timestamp so you can listen to it in Spanish. So much scarier in Spanish, by the way. Anyway, what do you guys think? Would you have been that brave? Cause I don't think I could have.
What if you thought that you were home alone, but then you heard your mother's voice call out to you? Welcome back to Creepy Crochet and Creepy Pasta. Let's get into today's scary story. One day, I was home alone in my room. My sister was at her friend's house, and my mom and brother were visiting my dad in the hospital. It was around 6 o'clock, just starting to get dark, when I heard my mom calling my name, which was really weird because I definitely would have heard her come in and walk up the stairs. Another weird thing is she called me my full name, Ruby, which is strange because she always calls me Rue or Ruru, never my full name. But I answered anyway, pushing past the uneasy feeling. "Yeah, Mom?" She replied. "Are you hungry?" I said no, I had already eaten, but she asked again, "Are you hungry?" I was starting to get a bit freaked out, so I asked, "Mom, are you okay? When did you get back?" But all she said was, "Come out so I can make you something to eat." She just kept repeating that over and over. At that point, I was sure this wasn't my mom, or even a person, so I just sat with my back against the door and called my mom. And I swear, the minute she answered and I heard her real voice, the mimic stopped. The uneasy feeling just lifted off my chest. I asked her, "Where are you? Are you home?" She said, "No, me and your brother are still waiting for the bus. See you soon, baby." That sent a shiver down my spine, because now I knew for a fact it wasn't her and I was still home alone. I never told my mom what happened because she had some terrible experiences with the supernatural before, but I did tell some friends and my sister. None of them truly believed me. This is still the most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me. Thank you for reading my story. Ruby, thank you for sending me your story. These stories always get me. If you want to hear me read your scary story, please email it to lidslunacy@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Creepy Crochet and Creepy Pasta. Check out my YouTube for longer videos and my Etsy for crochet patterns and plushies, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!
Anytime I think of this story that happened to me, I get full body chills, so I just have to give you guys a story time. Let's start off by saying that I am not somebody who believes in paranormal activity, ghosts, or anything like that. Just like not my thing. I'm Catholic, I grew up Catholic, and just like, I'm not into it, okay? And you know what? Feel free to tell me that I'm being dramatic. I don't want to believe that this is anything of that sort. I'm good. I'm not the one, okay? I'm seriously not the one. So if you guys think that I'm like being dramatic or whatever, you have some scientific backup for this, I want to hear it. And I do have videos for proof. Let me just give you guys a quick background story. It was my fiance's birthday. He was my boyfriend at the time. This was like in 2022-ish. We had a massive pool party for him at my mom's house. So I was living at my mom's house at the time. I wasn't living with him yet. And I got balloons for him for his birthday, obviously. There was one balloon that just said happy birthday Nat. It was like a helium balloon, I believe. It's like one of those like see-through ones that you can like see through it and there's like confetti in it. So it's a couple days after the party and the balloons are just chilling on the main floor. I want to say it's like 3-4 days after the party, and I am home alone. So I'm in my bedroom, nothing new. Reminder, the balloons have been in this house for like 3 days already. And please just take a look at what happens.
What? The fuck? Oh my gosh, this literally just floated into my room. It literally just peeked its way through my door. It's coming back down towards me. Oh my gosh, I'm really scared.
And mind you guys, my mom's house has 5 bedrooms on the top floor, okay? And I was sending these Snapchats to my friends like in real time as it was happening, just because like I couldn't believe my eyes. I was literally like, how did this one balloon come to my bedroom? I'm the only one home. How did it come to my bedroom of all bedrooms? Like my mom's house is super intricate. Like I don't know how to explain it. It's just, it made absolutely no sense. The staircase is like on the other side of the house. There's 2 staircases to go up. There's walls, there's bends. It's just, it's literal insanity. But that's not even the most of it. Keep watching.
I'm petrified. I'm scared. Like, I'm really scared. I can't move. I'm still. Oh my gosh. It's like facing me. I feel like it's facing me now. My room. This balloon was in my kitchen. I'm too scared to get up right now. I'm scared to get up right now. Like,
And I know what you guys are probably thinking. Allegra, it could have just been the airflow of your house. And little me actually put that to the test. I moved the balloon to a bunch of different rooms just to see if it was airflow. But my family's just not like that. Like, we're not cranking up the AC. We don't have windows open. It's not, that wasn't the case.
Update. I moved the balloon into my mom's closet, but I didn't shut the door completely. But that's like complete different airflow from downstairs. So this is kind of like a test. If it comes back into my room, I'm moving out.
So here I am thinking, I'm never going to see that balloon again. Like, it's gone now. And in the corner of my eye, there she is.
Guys, I moved it back down. Guys, I moved it back down. Guys, I moved it back down and it's coming back. I swear if it comes in here. Okay. Okay. This is my cue to leave. I'm out. I'm out of here. I'm out. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, we are going to get guys. Guys, if I was still sitting here, this is what I would have seen.
So basically, if I was still sitting in my bed in my original position, watching my computer, this balloon would be right beside me, facing me. What? Okay, and this is the kicker of this entire story, because this is what's leading me to believe that this wasn't just a balloon in my house following me. You can see in that exact same night, I shit you guys not, it was an hour before this whole balloon thing went down. I took a Snapchat in my mirror in my bedroom, and my sweatshirt says the following.
What's that?
Like, do you guys remember when like Kanye West dropped that merch and those sweatshirts were really popular? I can't believe like I was wearing that and then all this shit just happened. It's like, is that just a coincidence? Or am I being crazy? Am I being dramatic? Like, I don't know. What do you guys think of this story? Because anytime I think about it, I get full body chills, like, and just the whole feel of the entire night was just so off. I literally moved out. I literally moved out of the house after that. Super freaky. Let me know what you guys think.
I couldn't sleep last night, so I started scrolling on my phone and I saw this.
Mom, where were you? Why didn't you save me? Why didn't you protect me?
And it instantly brought me back to 2008 when I was a kid and my family and I moved into this house. I kid you not, this house was so incredibly haunted that it's made me feel scared and unsafe every other place that I've lived. This isn't my usual content, but I feel like I need to get this off my chest. And I need to finally talk about all of the horrifying things that happened inside these walls. I absolutely love all things horror and paranormal. And if you want to be scared tonight, grab your blanket, close your blinds, stick around, and let's talk talk about it. So my mom and dad divorced when I was 6 years old. And after that, it was pretty much just my mom, my sister, and I. To kind of recover from such a huge change, we briefly moved in with my grandparents at their home in Yakima, Washington. And although it was definitely super crowded, I loved it. While we lived there, we always eyed the house next door. It really wasn't much, but we thought it was cute. And as kids, we thought it would be the coolest thing in the world to live right next door to my grandma and grandpa, who we were really close with. Fast forward to 2008. This is when that very house, the small green house that needed a lot of work, was put up for sale. My mom did not wait. She instantly put in an offer, and the next thing you know, it was ours. We moved in sometime in the fall, and at first we were just so happy to be there and have a place of our own. It was 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and in a house full of girls, we somehow made the 1 bathroom thing work. This house was built in 1935, so it was super old, and you could definitely tell. Also, don't judge. I know this house is not really super great, but it's all we had, and I loved it, and that's all that matters. But still, we were so happy. I don't personally have any photos from that time in my life since I was a kid, so I'm using what I can find online. But as you can see, this is the living room, and if you went down this arched hallway, to the right would eventually be my mom's room. Moving on from that, you'd have the kitchen, and right at the entrance of the kitchen, you'd have the door that goes into the basement. Now, the basement at this house was in such bad shape, like completely unusable. It would flood super easily, and it wasn't sealed off very well, so a lot of bugs and sometimes even gardener snakes would get in. Again, don't judge. But anyways, from the second we got the keys to this place, we all kind of had the same feeling about the basement, that it was creepy and no one should go down there. The door only locked from the outside, and it was one of those slide locks at the top of the door. And when you open the door, it was super unsettling because the inside of the door was painted in primary colors, like for kids. And on top of that, there were scratch marks on the inside of the door, like someone was locked down there and tried to get out. But it was definitely not the place to keep kids. It was gross, dark, and very dirty. Then if you kept walking past the kitchen, you'd end up in the dining room. The bathroom was right there, and then the washer and dryer room. Then you'd have the back door, and then another bedroom, which turned out to be my sister's. And then you'd have the stairs in the dining room leading up to what would become my room. I specifically picked the upstairs room because I thought it was so cool. You'd walk up the stairs and then immediately be in like a little office area with a window that you could get out onto the roof from. And then to the left, it was a long loft-like bedroom. And all the way at the end of this room by the smaller window is where I put my bed. It felt so cool being up here all alone, especially as the youngest kid. And I remember the exact day that I painted this room purple. Anyways, we were so happy to finally be in. But things started immediately happening that made the hairs on the back of our necks stand up. I remember one of the first few nights that we stayed in the house, and we all went to bed like normal. But the next morning, I woke up and went into the bathroom, and I saw something laying in the sink. It was an old, rotten tooth that didn't belong to any of us. Like, no one had unknowingly lost a tooth, and even if we did, this tooth was super old and very rotten, and it definitely wasn't there the night before. It was super creepy. But we pushed this out of our minds and continued on. When we lived there, we had 3 cats and a toy poodle named Charlie, and like I said, my grandparents lived right next door, so we all felt safe. The house wasn't in a good neighborhood by any means, but we had each other. As weeks turned into months, we noticed cold spots all over the house, and there were certain areas that smelled really bad, like rotten meat. It was horrible, but we brushed this off as the house being old and maybe just having weird smells. One thing that I very clearly remember is the fact that none of my animals liked the basement either. They would all sit in a circle pretty much and just stare at the basement door. My cats would hiss and my dog would growl, and it always just felt like someone was in the basement trying to get out. We tried to ignore what was happening, but it didn't take long for my grandparents to begin noticing too. When my mom was working, my grandma was always over helping take care of us. And to put it into perspective how close we were, we actually installed a gate in her backyard fence so that we could go to each other's houses whenever we wanted. One morning, my grandma came over to the house when we were at school and started making food for my cats. She had her back turned to the hallway leading into the living room when all of a sudden she heard this in her right ear. It sounded like the noise from the movie The Grudge, which is so freaking scary. When we got home from school, she told us about it, and we all kind of had a heart-to-heart about how weird we felt in the house. Like we were never fully alone. Another day, I got out of school, and it was just me and my grandma at the house. She had made me lunch, and we were sitting in the living room when all of a sudden, we both simultaneously heard a man yell, "Hey," in the same room as us, which scared us so bad. At this point, none of us could deny what was going on in the house. Sometimes people can be skeptical if it's just one person seeing or hearing something, but this was basically my entire family. Another thing I remember early on is going upstairs one night with my mom when all of a sudden, a little remote toy car started driving along the carpet. It spooked us because the car didn't have any batteries in it, so how the heck was it now driving right in front of us? Remember how I said I was so excited to have my room upstairs? Well, I hardly ever slept in it. I was so scared to be up there alone because it literally felt like someone was right in front of me staring into my soul, like someone I couldn't see, but I could feel them glaring at me. It just always felt like I wasn't alone. The air felt so heavy, and I remember trying to sleep up there, but once I turned off the lights, it literally felt like someone was this close to my face. Another thing that scared me was that at the end of my bedroom in that little office, I had one of those vintage touch lamps. So to turn it on, you just tap it 3 times and it would get brighter until it eventually turned off with that very last touch. Well, on a couple different occasions, I tried to sleep on my own upstairs. It would be pitch black and I would be so scared, but trying to fall asleep. And just as I was about to, the touch lamp at the end of my room would turn on. Then it would get one setting brighter and then the next setting brighter. And it did this until it turned off. This meant that someone was standing there and physically touching it, but no one was there. Needless to say, I sprinted downstairs and slept with my mom. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but I was so scared living there that I slept with my mom a lot. I would have such bad nightmares there, and one night I had the most vivid nightmare that I've ever had. Like, it was the scariest and most disturbing dream ever, and it felt so real. So when I woke up in the middle of the night in tears, I ran to my mom's room and woke her up. She was able to calm me down, but just as I was about to fall asleep, her TV turned on and started blaring static. It freaked all of us out. Another one of my earlier memories in the house was one day in the summer, and I must have been around 12 or 13 years old. It was right around the time that my mom would get home from work, and I was home alone at the time. I was doing my hair in a mirror that we had in the kitchen when I heard what I thought was the front door opening, and then I heard someone walking into the hallway. I assumed that it was my mom because that's when she would get home from work, and I heard this person slam something down on the desk in the hallway right in front of my mom's room. I thought it was her purse, so I said, "Hey, Mom," and my mom yelled back a quick, "Hey." So I kept talking to her, not thinking anything of it, but as I waited for her response, I got nothing. So I walked into the hallway, but no one was there. No purse, no mom. I was just all alone. So I walked up to the front window, and as I did, I watched my mom's car pull into the driveway. That entire time, she wasn't home. Yet whoever answered me and said, "Hey," sounded exactly like my mom. I was so scared. Over the years that we lived there, my sister and I would constantly hear our big wooden back door slide open. The door seemed just a tad bit too big, or maybe it was just really heavy. So every time you opened it, you would hear this whoosh sound across the hardwood floor. It was a very distinct sound. We also always heard the doorknob jiggle like someone was trying to open it from the outside. And almost every single time, we thought it was just our grandma coming over through the backyard fence, but it never was. We were always alone. During this time period, my mom started dating a new guy who was horrible, but that meant that she stayed the night at his house a lot and would leave my sister and I home alone for a couple days at a time. A lot of the time, we were there alone. One night, I was sitting on the couch in the living room while my sister was in the bathroom in the back of the house. I thought I saw something out of the corner of my right eye, and when I glanced over, I saw one of her cats. At first, it didn't register that something was weird, until I realized that my cat was hovering on the other side of the couch. He wasn't standing or sitting on anything. He was basically just like floating in the air. And the second I fully looked at him, he dropped to the ground like someone was holding him. Since my mom was gone a lot and I was really scared, at some point I started sleeping in my sister's room with her. I blew up a twin air mattress and set it right next to her bed. One night, again, we were home alone and getting ready for bed. My sister was already in her room waiting for me, but I was getting something out of the kitchen. As I made my way through the dining room to get to my sister's room, I heard footsteps literally right behind me. Like right after every step I took, I would hear another footstep coming up right behind me. I froze out of fear and curiosity. And as I stood there in complete silence, just waiting to see if anything would happen, a calendar that we had hung up on our wall in the kitchen fell to the ground. So I sprinted into my sister's room and slammed the door. Growing up, my sister and I loved horror movies and ghost movies. So whenever stuff like this happened, we were of course scared, but at the same time, we kind of laughed about what was happening. Nothing had hurt us. It was just scary. As I got a bit older, I must have been around 15 or so at the time, I eventually moved into my mom's old room and she took mine upstairs. I was too scared to sleep up there and she didn't care. So one night I stayed up super late in my room and I was doing my makeup in my floor mirror. And then I took a series of mirror selfies because I thought I was cute. But later that night, just as I was about to go to bed, I started looking at the photos that I had just taken, and something stood out to me. Starting at this AC unit, a cloud of black smoke hovered above it, and with each picture that I took, this cloud of black smoke would move just a hair, until the very last picture, where the ball of black smoke was now hovering over my face, which distorted one of my eyes. It freaked me out because there was no smoke in my room, and I just couldn't explain it. When my sister was in high school, she was in jazz band, so during the week, my mom would have to take her to school an hour before it actually started so that they could practice. Well, one of those mornings, that's what took place. So I was at home alone getting ready for my school day, just waiting for my mom to come back. During the 30 minutes or so that she was gone, I took a selfie on my iPad because I had just gotten a set of new headbands that I thought were really cute. Then I went about my day and honestly didn't think about this selfie for a really long time. But a few months later, I was going through the photos on my iPad when I clicked on the one that I took that day. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my back basically up against my sister's door to her room, and I was smiling. But as I looked closer, I noticed something horrifying. Standing behind me and kind of creeping out of my sister's room was the outline of what looked like a little boy. Like, it didn't look human, but it kind of looked like a little boy. Like, you could clearly see the outline of his head, shoulders, and the rest of his body going down. But his face was hollowed out. Where his eyes would be were two big gaping holes. So this figure was super transparent, and like I said, it didn't really look human. I don't have my iPad anymore, which is honestly super sad because this photo is really scary. One night, my sister and I were getting ready to go and pick up her boyfriend from work, which I think he worked at Allen Brothers Fruit in Natchez. I could be wrong, but I think that's where he worked. Anyways, while she was getting ready in the bathroom, I made a joke and said, how funny would it be if I put my phone in the basement and record for a bit to see if I catch anything? She didn't love that idea, but I did it anyway. So going against my better judgment, I hit record, opened the creepy basement door, put my phone on one of the bottom steps, and then I went back upstairs. I think I recorded for about 20 minutes or so. When we got in the car to go and pick up her boyfriend, I was listening to the video when all of a sudden you could hear what sounded like footsteps at the bottom of the basement. The footsteps walked up the stairs, and then it sounded like my phone shook, and after that, it was silence. I told my friends what was happening, but nobody really seemed to understand the gravity of the situation until they stayed the night. I remember the very first time that my childhood best friend Katie stayed the night. It was when my room was still upstairs in the loft. I felt okay sleeping up there since she was with me too, but keep in mind I was probably like 12 or 13. Anyways, I let her sleep in the bed and I slept on the floor right next to her. We stayed up late, but we eventually fell asleep and everything seemed normal at first. But at around 3 a.m., I woke up to all of the big lights on in my room. I looked for my friend who was still sound asleep in the bed next to me. But the creepiest part was that all of her blankets had been pulled off of her and were strewn down the hall, like all the way to where the stairs were. I was half asleep still and kind of just thought that maybe she got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and didn't turn the lights off or realize that her blankets were off of her. But somehow, even with the lights shining in my face, I fell back asleep pretty quickly. When I woke up the next morning, all of the lights were now off and all of those blankets that were on the floor were now back on my friend. When I brought it up to her and asked if she got up in the middle of the night, she had no idea what I was talking about. So ever since then, she too felt like my house was haunted. She was a real one though, because even though my house was so scary, she would still continue to come over and stay the night with me. Like one time on a different night, she stayed over again. We were home alone and had finally laid down in my room to wind down for the night. This is when my room was now this one, the one downstairs, the one that used to be my mom's. We went back and forth so long about what to watch on the Xbox, but eventually we settled on A Haunting, which was one of my favorite shows growing up. Within minutes of turning this on, we heard glass shatter right outside my bedroom window. At first, we actually thought that someone was trying to break in. I didn't live in a good neighborhood and we genuinely heard glass shatter. I then realized that I never locked the front door, so I crept out into the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and then made my way over and locked the front door. But we couldn't shake the feeling that someone was there with us, so I called my grandma and grandpa who were right next door. And as they were investigating the house, they saw that the light right outside my bedroom window was smashed and shattered, but it was just us there. Another time, I had a few more of my friends over, and this time it was during the day. We were all in my tiny little bathroom trying on some new dresses that we just got. And as we were doing this, it sounded like my back door opened and then someone sprinted and stomped into the house and then down the hallway. I thought it was my sister who was next door at my grandma's house. So I called out to her, but I got no response. I slowly made my way into the dining room with all of my friends behind me, but we weren't the only ones there. It was just me and my friends, but we all heard it too. A couple of my friends were so scared that they never stayed the night at my house ever again. Another incident happened when a few of my other friends were staying the night. I don't think we were home alone when this happened, but I think my mom was sound asleep upstairs. So that night, we were all in the living room going back and forth on what movie to watch. I begged them to let us watch 1408, which to this day is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. friends. And to my surprise, they said yes. Once the movie was over, I realized that one of my friends named Maddie was sound asleep on the couch. Maddie was a super heavy sleeper. Like, you could probably shove her off the couch and she wouldn't wake up. So my other friends and I decided to leave her on the couch so that we could go to sleep in my room, which was right down the hall. But before we did, we all thought that it would be a spooky idea to set up a camera in the living room kind of pointed at Maddie, and you would get a big view of the hallway leading into my bedroom. We wanted to record all night in hopes of catching something, because at this point, everyone knew that my house was haunted. So we did exactly that. And Maddie, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry because I remember you getting so mad that we did this to you. Looking back, that was honestly such a scary thing to do. So we hit record and went to bed, and when we woke up the next morning, we looked at the footage, and sure enough, we did catch something. A shadow was caught walking in the hallway by my bedroom door, and then it slowly passed and looked like it was standing over my friend, Maddie. The shadow would go back and forth all night until it eventually disappeared. Sometimes late at night when I was home alone, I would hear what sounded like my back door opening, and then my grandma saying, "Hi, Cordy," which is what she used to call me. So I would say hi back, but she never responded. When I would get up to look for her, she was never there. I would then text her to see if she just came over, but she would always say no, and that she was at home. I think one of the scariest things to ever happen to me inside that house was one night when I was again home alone. My mom was at her boyfriend's and my sister was out with friends or something. At this point in time, I was sleeping in her bedroom with her, and I had just laid down to go to bed. I plugged my phone in and slipped it underneath my pillow like usual. And just as I was about to fall asleep, I heard this crazy, hysterical laughing coming from my living room. Like it was a continuous, maniacal laugh, like something you'd hear out of a horror movie coming from my living room. I'll see if I can find something similar and put it in here. I was so petrified, like frozen in fear, that I couldn't even reach for my phone that was right underneath my pillow. This laughing went on for quite some time until it eventually stopped and my sister came home. I told her what happened, but I was legit shaking. It was so scary. This is all the stuff that happened to just me and my friends, but my sister and her friends experienced stuff too. One night, my sister had one of her friends sleep over. At this point, my room was still upstairs, and although I hardly ever slept up there because I was scared, that night I decided that I would try. I didn't want to embarrass myself in front of her friends, so I tried to be a big girl. Somehow, by the grace of God, I actually fell asleep, but when I woke up the next morning, my sister's friend said something horrifying to me. She said, "Were you playing piano last night? It sounded really good," or something along those lines. I felt my face go cold because no, not only did I not play the piano, I actually didn't even know how to, but the electric piano that I had upstairs in my room had sat unplugged and collecting dust for months. So she heard someone playing it that night, only it wasn't me. My sister and I would often lay in bed at night and feel what we thought were our cats jumping up on the bed and crawling up our legs. But then the pressure and the indentation on the blankets would just stop. And when we looked down, there was no cat on the bed. In fact, there was no cat in our room. When we first moved into the home, my sister painted a guitar on her bedroom door because she was obsessed with Guitar Hero. Inside the guitar, she painted a blue eyeball with red veins. I don't know why, but I guess that was just her style. A few nights later, my sister had one of the worst dreams that she has ever had. It had something to do with her eyes falling out or some type of trauma to her eyes. When she got up, the eyeball that she had painted on her door that had definitely been dry had now started bleeding down the door. Like the red and white paint dripped and mixed together to make it look like the eye was crying blood. Just like in her dream, which freaked her out. I understand this could have some, logical explanation, but it's still really scary and I wanted to add it in. On another occasion, she woke up to find these really scary handprints on her bedroom floor mirror. It wasn't just a typical hand or handprint. This hand was incredibly long and the fingers were pointed and sharp. It looked like a demon handprint, and if I can find a picture of something similar, I'll definitely add it. This scared her so bad that she actually had a family meeting while I was in a different room so as not to scare me. But I'm nosy and of course barged my way into the conversation. Most nights, my sister would sleep with our family dog Charlie before I started sleeping with her. Well, one night, my sister woke up to Charlie growling, which was rare. When she sat up, her entire room was filled with smoke, and the little space heater that she kept in her room was on fire. It was really weird because the fire alarm didn't go off, which it definitely should have, but my sister ran out and woke up my mom. She aired the room out and put the space heater outside for the night. When we woke up the next morning, the space heater showed no sign that there was ever a fire. It now didn't have any burn marks. Literally nothing to show that just the night before, it was up in flames. If it wasn't for my dog Charlie, I don't know what would have happened to my sister. At one point when I lived there, I actually made a do-it-yourself Ouija board to see if I could catch anything. And I do know that that's not a good thing to do, but I was a literal child. I don't remember anything talking to me, but I did this because my mom always talked about how when she was a teenager, she would go and play with Ouija boards in the cemetery. She would always tell us that she lived in this one house in Yakima growing up that she felt was haunted too. Apparently, she would always hear a little girl calling her name at night from the hallway. And this is when she too was a little girl. And one time, my grandma was cooking in the kitchen when she opened the stove, and she felt someone push her almost into it. Luckily, she didn't get hurt, but they didn't stay in that house for very long. They were too scared. So we always kind of thought that whatever haunted my mom as a kid was now haunting us in our house. I don't know if that's true or not, but it certainly was an explanation. On a few different occasions, I woke up with blood in my hair and had no explanation for how it got there. It was so weird. My mom eventually sold the house in 2017, I believe, and I haven't stepped foot in it since. All I know is that that house scared me really bad, and it's made me feel unsafe and scared in every house I've lived in since. Not long after selling that house and moving out, I was visiting my sister in her old house. At this point in time, we were now both adults, like 18 and 20 years old, and this was a completely different house, but still in Yakima. Anyways, we were watching a movie on her couch. I was laid out on my back, and she was laying down across the couch on her side with her head in my lap. And like usual, every time we go to watch a movie together, she fell asleep. I guess I did too, even though I'm like 99% sure that what I experienced was sleep paralysis. I just remember laying on my back and my eyes starting to close. And then all of a sudden, my eyes shoot open, but I'm unable to move. I see a woman on my sister's ceiling, just smiling and staring at me, but I physically cannot move. I'm trying with every fiber of my being, but I'm literally stuck there. I remember feeling like I was sinking into the couch, kind of like in that movie Get Out where he goes to the sunken place. Anyways, after a while of this feeling like I'm sinking and can't move, I finally break free and my whole body jolts up and actually jumps over my sister's ottoman. This ends up waking her up since she was laying in my lap, but I was so scared that I told her what just happened. We kind of brushed this off and thought that it must have been a dream, but it just felt too real, and honestly, I still think about it. And ever since then, I don't sleep on my back because I am terrified that it's going to happen again. I don't know if this was connected to my haunted house, but it was still really scary. Anyways, when I saw this video on Instagram, it instantly brought me back to this time in my life. It was horrifying, and I can confidently say that my childhood home was haunted by something real and something really sinister. I feel okay now, but I just moved into a new build, so there shouldn't be anything here to haunt, unless it's me that's being haunted. But I don't want to think about that. Anyways, have you guys ever lived in a haunted house? And if so, please tell me your stories.
Remember how I be telling y'all, if you hear somebody knocking on your door or you hear somebody's voice but no one is home, never open the door? Scary story time. And this story this time is actually not my dad's story, it's my friend's story. She's also Haitian and she wanted to share her story with you guys. So when her family was supposed to come to this country, coming from Haiti, they kept it a secret. And this is actually a common thing because even with me too, when I was coming, it was an absolute secret. Nobody knew but me, my dad, and my grandma, and my uncle. And my uncle was a pastor. Well, is a pastor. But the reason for that is people are jealous and people will do anything to stop you from where you need to be. When they see you prospering and it's not them, I've seen it happen so many times in Haiti. Anyway, so that was the case for her and her family. At the time, it was her and her brother. And when I tell y'all, it was an absolute secret. Nobody knew they were coming to America but the people living in their house. It was literally top secret, which is why it was shocking to her mom when she got a phone call from a church member. Mind y'all, they weren't even that close. Like that church member, it's not like they were like best friends. It was just somebody they went to church with, and she actually lived very far too. Now, there was this lady that they knew, that everybody knew was a lugau, but it wasn't their business, you feel me? Like that's the lady's problem. That's her, she do her. Anyway, so the mom gets a phone call from the church member, and the church member tells her mom, I had a dream and I know that you guys are leaving. You guys are going to America, but so-and-so, the lady that's a lugau, does not like that. And she has something planned for y'all. so that it does not happen. Mind y'all, they don't even know how the Lugao lady found out that they're leaving, but I mean, you know, Lugao. The church member tells her from her dream that she was told to tell her mom these instructions. First one is, of course, make sure that nobody else finds out. The second one was there was this uniform they used to wear to church for Saturday services. She tells them to keep that uniform and all of their clothes that they're going to wear until the day that they leave, and make sure that nobody touches those clothes. And the last thing that she told her to do was that the car that was supposed to transport them to the airport, change it. Absolutely change it. So they did all of that. They prayed, they followed directions and stuff like that, and everything worked out well. They got here thinking it was over, but woo, was it far from over.